In this video about state funding for Montana's public libraries, we will explain the various sources of and the requirements for receiving financial support from the state for your public library. We're only discussing state funding that comes through the Montana State Library in this session. Although state aid can supplement funding, it's important to remember that at least 70% of revenue must come from local taxes. Your library may also receive state entitlement share. This funding flows through local governments to the library. You can learn more about state entitlement share from the Montana Association of Counties. One source of state funding for public libraries comes from the coal severance tax outlined in MCA 15-35-108. This money is distributed to the 6 federations based on a formula outlined in the Administrative Rules of Montana. Half the amount is split between the federations equally, while the remaining half is divided based on population. Each spring, the federations develop annual plans of service outlining how the funds will be spent. Categories usually include continuing education, resource sharing, community outreach, and building planning. These plans are presented to the State Library Commission for approval prior to the start of the fiscal year. In addition to having a voice in how the Federation will spend its funds, trustees may want to consider attending at least one Federation meeting each year. These meetings are a great way to meet other board members, learn about what is going on regionally and statewide. It is also a place where board members can give input on how funds are used and learn more about legislation that might impact libraries. Public libraries also receive state aid based on per capita and square miles served. This is authorized in MCA 22-1-327 and also outlined in the Administrative Rules of Montana. The current amount is 50 cents per capita. This funding is appropriated by the legislature and must be renewed periodically. Libraries can use state aid per capita in whatever way is most valuable to the library. The only stipulation is that state aid cannot be used to supplant general operating funds. This means local funds should continue to be a large part of the library's budget, and that state aid per capita is not seen as a substitute for those funds. In order to receive state funding, libraries must meet the public library standards. One of the standards requires the board to understand the revenue sources and budgeting process. It includes the responsibility of preparing and adopting the library's budget. Standards also require library boards to communicate with local government leaders about the library's financial needs and ability to meet the needs of the community. This can be achieved by developing a good relationship with local leaders, an ongoing process rather than simply appearing at a commission meeting when it's time to present the budget request. There is one additional source of state funding that is used for library services. These funds fall under statewide interlibrary resource sharing program outlined in MCA 22-1-328 and Administrative Rules of Montana. These funds are used to reduce the cost of OCLC and the Montana Shared Catalog. Libraries use OCLC to provide interlibrary loans, which is a service where a patron can request an item the library borrows from another library. OCLC provides software that can be used to catalog and share library items. Montana Shared Catalog is a consortium of over 200 libraries that share the same software. This software is used to track what a library owns and to check items in and out to patrons. Some of the libraries in the Montana Shared Catalog have decided to act as one big library, which means patrons can easily place a hold on books owned by their library and any of the libraries in the group. This makes it even easier for the patron to borrow items from another library. Because of this service, funds from the Interlibrary Resource Sharing Program are used to reduce the cost for local libraries that are part of the Montana Shared Catalog. These funds are not sent directly to local libraries, so you don't see them in the library's budget. They help by reducing the cost for your local library. There are other possible local resources for the board to consider. Local businesses and civic organizations might offer grants. A Friends of the Library group or foundation can provide additional support. See the Friends and Foundation video for information about these groups. Are you familiar with the amount of revenue your library receives from these funding sources? Do you know how these funds are spent by your library? Does your library use OCLC? Does it participate in the Montana Shared Catalog and/or one of the sharing groups? Thank you for offering your time as a trustee to support your local library and the community it serves. If you have further questions about finances and budgeting, please reach out to your state library consultant. The Trustee Handbook also has more information on budget planning.